Hi everybody, and welcome to an episode of The Garden Girl. Today we are going to talk about the birds and the bees. And no, not that kind of birds and the bees, but the birds, the hummingbirds, the bees, and even the butterflies that are around our community in our area. So I think it's very important. I know a lot of you guys are planting up perennials and climbing shrubs and climbers and everything else. And I wanted to have this episode kind of let you know what plants are really good for pollinators and why it's important. So today we are covering the birds and the bees, just not that kind of birds and the bees. So stay tuned. Grab your pen and paper because you're going to have to write down all the names that I'm giving you and showing you here so that you know what to come to the garden centers to get. And we will be right back.
Agland Country Stores can be found across Northeast Ohio, serving the needs of homeowners, pet owners, and farmers. We have a huge inventory of livestock, pet, equine, farm, and garden supplies. Our organization is a strong supporter of our county 4-H and FFA programs. During the fair, Agland stocks a booth with supplies needed to get everyone through the week. Visit us at 1062 West High Avenue in New Philadelphia or call us at 330-339-1062.
A nursing home or your own home? It's good to be home, so call Ember Complete Care for all of your home health needs. When you're recovering from illness or injury, our compassionate staff promotes healing in the most comfortable environment of all, your own home. For skilled nursing, physical therapy, wound care, and more, Ember Complete Care serves all of Tuscarawas, Coshocton, and Harrison counties. Call 800-462-0909. Ember Complete Care. It's good to be home.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Allure Hair Studio, located at 210 East 3rd Street in Yerricksville.
Hi everybody, and welcome back. Today is about the birds and the bees. So why is it a main concern for pollinators? I know some of you guys have probably read in the paper, or, on the internet, if you're into gardening anyhow, which you probably are watching this show, you know that there's been a big concern about the bees, especially. Yes, we do have to watch a few things and we need to cater to them. Well, why? What's the big deal with pollinators? Well, domestic bees themselves account for $10 billion. $10 billion of pollinating for our industry in crops. Well, what crops? You name it. Cucumbers, tomatoes, clove, alfalfa. Okay, yeah, I realize you're probably like, but we don't eat alfalfa. No, but that filet mignon has to eat alfalfa at some point. So if you're a meat eater, you need that. I mean, in our hay fields alone, we had a lot of clove, a lot of alfalfa. It has to be pollinated, and the bees are the key for that. So if you don't pollinate, you don't have hay, you don't have food for the animals, therefore you don't have your filet mignon or your hamburgers. So it's very, very important in that aspect. In the other aspect, they pollinate blueberries, pears, your apple trees, tomatoes, cucumbers, and many, many other crops, even your raspberries and blackberries. So not only is it good to plant, hence we're feeding ourselves with vegetables, but they're feeding themselves too. It really, really helps. And basically, somebody was like, so what, at least we don't get stung. I'm gonna probably break it down for you real simple. If all the bees died, like if we had no bees, we're not gonna be around much longer either. We have to have bees. It is a relationship, a symbiotic relationship with us basically, and them that need to happen in order for our existence as well. So by planting the pollinators that we're going to go over today, we're going to figure out how we can help them so that they can help us. Now, when we talk about flowers, they serve two purposes. When we get into the hummingbirds and bees, okay, flowers either do the pollen or the nectar. Okay, so those are the two. Now, nectar is a carbohydrate. So just like how I joke around and say, hey, I'm going to, stock up on a bunch of carbs so I can run around like a jackrabbit on crack, that's what they need too. So your hummingbirds and your bees, they really need the carbs. It gives them energy because they're hoverers. And if I can get you guys to, if you've never paid attention before, if I can get you guys to go outside and just kind of watch them, if you have them, you'll see that. Yeah, some of the bees do land, but sometimes they just hover, grab, and go. Hummingbirds especially, they hover. So their little wings, they're burning up some serious calories every day. So they need the nectar. Now the pollen is used by all, and the pollen is what the bees take back in order to feed their youngsters in the hive, which, again, gives us more youngsters, more bees, which is a good thing, to pollinate more plants. And obviously, the last time I checked, honey was pretty good at Bob Evans on those lovely biscuits. So I like my honey. So with that being said, they're very important in that manner. Also, the pollen feeds our baby butterflies. And if you're a butterfly lover, like a lot of people are, it's very important. So flowers serve the two purposes, nectar and pollen. Okay, so you say, yes, I am on board. I can do this. I'm going to put them in. What do I put in? All right, I have just a small grouping. You can find a lot more information online, but I wanted to highlight a few plants, climbers, and shrubs that are very common to our area that you can find easy. Obviously, we have them here in Hillcrest, so you can find them here, but you can find them anywhere. Well, I shouldn't say that because we do get some neat stuff. You can find them at a wide array of places there, put it that way. But I wanted to bring you stuff that's for our zone so that it does well. And then I'm also going to touch base on some annuals if you haven't gotten your annuals yet, or your herbs, some of them that are really good. So first off, what we have is our columbine. Columbine is wonderful because all three of them, and this is the other thing that you got to realize. Certain plants are good for maybe bees and butterflies, but maybe not the hummingbirds. Some are good for hummingbirds and bees, but not the butterflies. So you have to understand that with bees and your butterflies, they like more, well, especially bees, they like more of the small tubular flowers that they can hover over. Now, your hummingbirds, they like the large tubular flowers. And your butterflies almost need like a mid-sized flower because they like to land. So that's the kicker. There is different plants, and some do. Some are good for all of them. Some hit all three, and those are the ones I'm trying to highlight. For starters, columbine's a very good one. It's a steady Eddie. Did I bring it in here? Maybe I didn't bring that one in. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. I might not have brought in columbine. Columbine is a wonderful one for all three of them. So you're definitely good to go there. Columbine will grow in the sun and part shade. So you've got some variance there where you put it. The key with columbine is you either need to keep it contained or constrained, but it's kind of aggressive. The next one that I really like is like your beard's tongue. Beard's tongue, let me get this guy here. This is beard's tongue, and you can see the nice little flowers on it. Again, your beard's tongue, that is really going to be a hummingbird lover. They really, really like that. So you can plant some of your beard's tongue in, and that'll do really, really well for you, especially if you like the hummingbirds. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the Kniphofia, which I didn't bring in because it's really not blooming or big. Kniphofia is a nice, neat red spike. It's a cool looking flower. People call them red hot pokers, but they bloom midsummer. So there's nothing real showy about them. They just look like a clump of grass right now, kind of sprouting out. but they will shoot out gorgeous, neat flowers that are really cool. When we come back, we got to go to a break real quick, but when we come back, I'm going to go over the rest of these real quick so you know where to put them, what they're good for, and again, you can keep your list going. So stay tuned.
We live in a fast-paced world. Say goodbye to searching books and search engines for all the answers. Now there's iTowns. From finding a place to dine or locating your family doctor, you can also check out the high school game of the week from TV2 Sports. Get your answer with just one click. iTowns has it all.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Allure Hair Studio, located at 210 East 3rd Street in Yerixville.
Hi everybody and welcome back. We're still covering our pollinator plants, so I hope you have your pen and paper ready. A lot of this is kind of hard for me to remember, so I have my cheat sheet here too. But now a lot of people talk about butterfly weed, and butterfly weed, there is two different ones here. This one here is the incarnata. Now the incarnata is what they call the swamp milkweed, and the swamp milkweed is really good for your butterflies and your hummingbirds, okay? Now, the tuberosa, which is, it's the Latin name, it's Asclepias tuberosa. Now, that is what you call your milkweed or your butterfly weed. Now, that particular kind, they're not ready yet, it's still too early in the season, but that particular kind is good for all three. So, if you get the swamp milkweed, the incarnata, that's going to cover for your, your bees, your butterflies, and your hummingbirds. If you get the tuberosa, that's going to cover your bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds. So it's totally up to you. But it's a nice plant. This is a bigger plant. Just a forewarning, this is like a 3-4 foot plant. So you need to give it a lot of space. Next up on the list is our purple liatris. Liatris is really easy to grow. I've had it in every one of my perennial beds. You want to get the purple kind. I believe it's called kobold. But it's liatris. Some people call it gay feather. It works for all three. So you're going to hit your butterflies, your hummingbirds, and your bees if you use it. It's a great summer bloomer if you deadhead it right away. It will have offshoots, maybe not as big as the first original one, and it's not super aggressive. It doesn't go too crazy. You'll see it starting a spike right here, but they're beautiful. I mean, they're just a big purple spike. And then you'll see more come off here on the sides, but they're very, very nice. I like them a lot. Then we have one of my favorites, the lobelia. Now, lobelia is neat. Lobelia can tolerate a lot of crap. It will go sun, it blooms in the summer, and all three like it. The bees, the butterflies, and the hummingbirds again. So it's nice, it's a neat looking flower, it's a bright red. The cardinalis, that is the normal one that they all suggest. Again, it's a bigger plant. It's going to be in your 2 foot range, depending on how you feed it, maybe bigger. And it can take some partial shade. That's the nice thing about it. So it can take anywhere from the full sun to a partial shady area. Very nice plant if you want to hit all three. Next up on the list, another one that it's already kind of bloomed out, but a lot of people don't realize it, is lilies, lilium. Now, not hemerocallis, not daylilies, not like your stelladoras and stuff, but your lilium, which is like your orientals, your Asiatics, anything in the lilium family is really welcomed. And honestly, all three like them as well. So you're covering your base there, and there's a wide array. Lilies, like your Orientals and your Asiatics, I call them firework plants because they're like, ooh, ah, oh. They're a one-hit wonder. They will come on early summer every year, usually late spring, early summer. You'll have color for a good while, and it's beautiful, but then they're done. So as long as you can implement them in with the rest of your garden, hey, I like them. There's nothing wrong with them. Finally, next up on our list is Monarda. Now, a lot of you guys, it's called bee balm for short. So, bee balm is great. However, again, it smells fabulous. I love the way bee balm smells. However, it's a little aggressive. So, you need to be careful where you put it, as it does like to spread its wings and fly. Monarda is very good for all three. And again, I don't know if you can kind of see on the tag, but you know, it's the red. Stick with the red if you can. Just the good old fashioned, this is the Jacob Klein. Stick with that. It's really, really, really a nice plant. It's a tall plant and it likes to spread. So just kind of watch that. But it's a nice summer bloomer. Can't beat it at all. So that's going to be your Monarda. Next on the list is one of my personal favorites. I absolutely, and I'll try to let you get a close up here. This is the Salvia. Salvia is great for all three. I've had Salvia at every one of my houses. It's very disease resistant and it's very bug resistant. I never have to worry, I don't know, just at least in my case, it just is like, it's like it has armor or something. I never have problems with insects. I never have diseases. I've never had to spray it for nothing. Anything. So I really like it. And when you deadhead it again, remember how I said in the last episode about the verbena, it grows in threes? When this spike's done, I cut it and then I branch this out. These will branch out and they'll bloom. So I love it. It starts blooming in May and it never stops for me until like Halloween. It'll keep going and going and going. So this is another one of my favorites. Next on the list, for those of you that like your climbers, I am really, really, really going to recommend for the bees and the hummingbirds, the red trumpet vine. It's beautiful. Now, again, it's a climber, which means it likes to grow and go. So you need a trellis, obviously a lot bigger than this, but in this baby start, you need to get a good trellis on it and make sure that it's got room to grow. But it'll do a heck of a good job for you. I mean, if you have room for it, I would strongly suggest it. And another one's honeysuckle. The red honeysuckle is very, very nice. And hummingbirds love it, love it. So you can always utilize that too. Now, black-eyed Susans are good. Black-eyed Susans do very well for your bees and your butterflies. None are real showy right now. Obviously, you know, black-eyed Susan is more of a fall, late summer going into fall. It's something we always show at the fair. So it's, you know, obviously it's not real showy right now. Next on the list, well, actually, you know what? Let's take a break because when we come back, I'm going to do the other small little group of two perennials and a shrub, and then some of the herbs and the annuals that you can actually use, just a couple of them. So stay tuned.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Allure Hair Studio, located at 210 East 3rd Street in Yerixville.
Hi everybody and welcome back. So we are in our last part. And now we're going to go over just a couple more perennials that you can put in. Nice little shrub. Well, I shouldn't call it little. Well, It can be. There's varieties that are. And some of our herbs and annuals that you can use too. So one of the things that the bees and the butterflies really like, I don't know if you can get a close up, but I actually have this on the ground because yes, it's that tall, is echinacea or coneflowers. Coneflowers are really, really popular. And this is just the good old standard purple coneflower, and they work. There is some beautiful reds and some oranges, which by the way, hummingbirds really like red. They also, well really they like any blocks of color, but they do like the red. Butterflies like orange. They also like white. Bees like a real bright white. They see in UV anyhow, so you don't have to be as touchy with the color thing. But coneflowers are awesome. I know there's a Cheyenne Spirit that does wonderful. You can get some white ones for the bees and the butterflies. So yes, it is something that I really strongly suggest. They're very hardy. So you can definitely do your coneflowers. Now, the shrub that I absolutely love, and it does an awesome job, and some of you might be really familiar with it, is the actual butterfly bush. Butterfly bush is awesome if you have a full sun area and you've got room to let it grow. It's nice to get just to let it kind of get big throughout the season. You will see tons of even the moths on it, those little hummingbird moths, which I know I didn't really touch base on, but they do a great job of pollinating too, and they're very important. So I strongly recommend, I think that the butterfly bushes are a good bang for the buck. And I know some of you guys lost them over this last winter. I have heard reports that some butterfly bushes didn't come back. Most of the time they do. We just had an extreme winter. You know, again, for something that's under $20, hey, you can't beat the butterfly bush to fill up a nice spot. They do make the Lo and Beholds. That's a new variety, and it is lower. So you can also use those as well, and they'll do a nice job for you with the bees and the butterflies. So that's it for the perennial section. Now, if you want to use a couple herbs, what you're going to find is a lot of your herbs do very well at pulling in the bees and the butterflies. They like the smell. Something about the herbs really pulls them in. And two of them that, you know, my gosh, so many of us use is oregano and basil. And that's two of them that honestly work really, really well, especially for the bees. That'll get them in there. So you can definitely use these if you like. And they're cheap, and we use them too. I use them to can, so they work very nicely. And my big guy that just fell over, that is wonderful, wonderful for the hummingbirds, is your snapdragons. This is a taller snapdragon, but they work really well. So if you want to put, you know, a couple annuals out just for them, color block some nice red snapdragons, million bells, they work very well too. The red million bells are excellent. And petunias, again, we're talking about long tubular flowers. So especially if you get the red, like the super petunia reds, any of your reds, tubulars, excellent for your hummingbirds to try to pull them in and try to use your color blocking. And right up above my head is probably one of the most beautiful ones for the hummingbirds, and that's the fuchsias. Anybody around here that has built up a hummingbird garden knows that fuchsias work very well. The key with fuchsias is that if they dry, they die. They don't like to be dry. And frankly, million bells don't care much for it either. If they dry, they tend to be a little rough to get to come around. They really kind of hurts them and halts their growth. But fuchsias are excellent for hummingbirds. This is a beautiful white and pink one we have left. If you can still find them, there's red and purple ones. Sometimes, like we have them in the 4-inch containers, so you can pot them up and then let them go. They're excellent, excellent for hummingbirds. And the nice thing about it is when a lot of people around here do have shady spots, that's the other key for these guys. They are meant to stay in the shade. So keep them in the shade, you'll get your hummingbirds to come in. I think the last part, that now that you've wrote down all these, we need to realize how to take care of them. None of these are going to be planted deeper like a tomato or something. None of these, you are going to plant these flush. So no matter what you do, just like I'd said on my other episode when we were potting up containers, everything is going to be planted flush. Whether it's annuals and you're putting them in the ground, or you're making a hanging basket, or we're dealing with our perennials. You're not going to bury these crowns. Do not bury the crowns. Plant them flush, okay? And when you plant them, the other thing you can do, obviously, like I said on the last episode, pick your poison. Do you want to use some slow release? Do you want to use some bloom boost? You know, use something. Help give them a jump start. You know, when you water them in, either sprinkle around, you know, your tablespoon or a teaspoon of the slow release to help really get them established. Some people say, well, you can't plant in the summer. Why? It's the only person that says that are lazy people that don't want to water. I've planted tons of things in the summer, tons of stuff. You just have to be very on top of things and not let them dry. You have to let these roots get established. Many of these are native, so once they get a really good root hold and they get established, they do become drought tolerant. But with anything, when you're planting it in the ground, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you keep them moist. And I didn't say sopping wet. You don't want to keep them so wet that you can wring out the soil, but just a nice mediocre moisture to where they can get down in the soil, they can uptake food. Okay, the last part that I have to deal with is chemicals. And I know that, you know, we have to keep diseases at bay and certain bugs at bay. Here's the problem. Bees and butterflies are bugs. Now, if somebody says, well, you can use BT, you know, you can use BT, it's no big deal, it won't hurt the bees. Okay, yeah, they're correct. It won't hurt the bees, but it will kill your moths and your butterflies through their stomach. I mean, they basically ingest it and die. So, you know, you got to be careful on certain things. If you're not worried about the butterflies, fine, you could use it, whatever. Garlic, I'd rather see you use a little bit of garlic. If you have to kill off some other bugs, this is just an example. This is a horticulture oil or a neem oil. Now, in regards to bees, it has a moderate to low toxicity if it's applied at night. And you guys know as well as I do, bees are kind of like us. They love being out during the day, they love the sunshine, and then they kind of go to sleep at night. They're on our schedule, or most people's schedules. So if you're going to use this, it's fine, just use it at night or in the evening once you see that the bees and stuff have gone away. This is probably one of the better things to use. Low risk is the garlic, like I said, the garlic spray, you could do that. You can do this. If you're concerned about your weeds, you can use corn gluten. Corn gluten works good and it's organic. The other thing that when we talk about different fungicides, because I know certain things in certain years, they're susceptible to it. And you say, well, I have to spray. Okay, the only thing that has a very high toxicity to bees is the copper sulfate. You want to stay away from that. So with that being said, you can use, you can use the lime sulfur, but do it at night. Again, that's something else you're going to want to spray at night once the bees are away. But luckily it doesn't have the residual. So copper, just the copper, not the copper sulfate, just the copper, it has a moderate toxicity. Again, try to use it at night. But with all that being said, and you probably have a paper full of jotting downs of plants and everything else, I hope that this gives you a little bit of a start to how you can help our area with pollinators and how you can have a gorgeous garden, an absolute gorgeous garden. We'll get into it a little more as this season goes because we're going to make a trip to a butterfly exhibit. But in the meantime, happy planting. Try to stay cool because I know I'm going to get a glass of sweet tea. And have a great week. Until next time, see you guys.